All right, welcome everybody to what is episode 2. You may have seen or you may not have seen episode 1 of my new podcast. We still need to work on the title, but since it's going to be a short duration, this is probably just going to be the title of the podcast. The 2024 conference is just a few weeks away, and we don't want you to miss out on our fabulous speakers, so I'm going to talk to the speakers this week. It's a long name. It'll do for what the purpose is. Today's guest, and I'm so excited to have, is Shea Crawford. Hi, Shea.
Hey, how's it going, Amy?
It's good. It's great. So I'm super excited that Shea's going to come back to the national conference. Shea and I have known each other for a super long time, I would say, Shea. In the early days, Shea did me a lot of favors when we would have regional meetings. Shea, I would call and beg and say, Shea, can you give us a little time and come to the regional meetings? And he always obliged and did a great job and is a fan favorite. So we're super happy to have you back.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I know it's so hard for you to give up time as a tumbling coach in the summer. I know.
Yeah, it's tough. And now with a little one.
Oh, yeah.
I got a kid now, so.
Right. Aunt Amy with her parasocial relationship with Carter, it is what it is. So you'll have to tell Carter, I'm sorry. Someday he'll come and he can be my little assistant at the meeting. I'll give him a clipboard, a lanyard. He can walk around with me and keep everybody in line.
He would love that. He would love that for sure.
Yep. All right, Shea, before we get into talking about actual classes and whatnot, why don't you give everybody a little history of how you got into tumbling and coaching and where you are today?
When I was born into it, my dad owned a gymnastics gym when I was born. So I've literally been doing this my whole life. And interesting enough, Friday of the meeting will be my 44th birthday. So 44 years industry, spending my birthday there in the industry. And I've always done that every year, having it in the summer. It's been cheer tumbling related in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So super excited. And then I got into, switched into, my dad had women's gymnastics. So I was just kind of a tumbler. And then when we moved to Alabama, he was working with a high school gymnastics team and doing some cheer private lessons on the side. And so I got in the cheer world and started tried out my freshman year in high school, cheered all 3 years. Or cheered 3 of the 4 years. I actually did go to high school for 4. My 4th year, we created an all-star team. And then I went on to college at Snead State, so the community college there in Alabama. Cheered there for a couple years, won UCA. Then I moved to Tampa. I was coaching at a gymnastics facility there called Lightning City Gymnastics that also had cheerleading in it. And then I was, there I was kind of immersed in everything. So I was doing events set up. I was selling T-shirts, spotting back handsprings, giants on bars, cartwheels on beam. The whole got back into kind of what I was kind of born into. Then I moved to got an opportunity to go and coach at Hawaii Pacific University out there on Oahu at Honolulu. I was there for 2 years. Was very blessed. I mean, such an experience. You're in Hawaii, you get to finish your degree and work with some of the best athletes in the world. Then I moved back to Tampa. I was in Tampa for 8 years after that, coaching at Brandon. I was coaching teams, doing tumbling, the whole get up, and then moved to Louisville, Kentucky. I was at Gym Time for a year. And then after that, I was at Midwest Cheer Elite for a year and a half. And now I'm back in Tampa. My wife and I both coach and are directors at Brandon All-Stars in Tampa, Florida. We love it. It's fantastic. It's I'll never leave again. I love the heat. I do not like the snow. So me and my family are here in Tampa. So it's a long list that kind of shrunk down there. But that's my experience in a nutshell.
Yeah, I think it's great. Us Ohioans, right? I get it. We don't like the snow either. It's here. We just don't like it. we live with it. My husband and I always talk about actually moving to Florida. I just don't know that my kids are going to move to Florida. They both have girlfriends that are, basically Ohioans. yeah, Northern Ohio, and so we'll have to deal with that at some point. But we do like going to Florida and going on trips and whatnot. So let's talk about your tumbling philosophies. So if you had to break it down, really quickly, like where does Shea stand? Like what are his core principles for tumbling?
I have two main philosophies. Number one is if you can feel it, you can fix it. If you can't feel it, you can't fix it. And that's in coaching the athletes. A lot of times, I use this one the most. How many of us have ever said, don't throw your head back? I don't think any kid walks in the gym and goes, you know what, Coach Shea told me not to throw my head back last week. Today, I just feel like throwing my head back. I don't think they genuinely believe that. I think it's our job to make sure that they feel that they're throwing their head back. And if we can help them feel what they're doing wrong, we can help them feel what they're doing right. And that's equally as important, to feel the mistakes and to feel the improvements so that we can continue moving forward. And then number two is fix the first problem. I can't tell you how many times I've done camps and clinics, or even with my kids and my coaches, myself is included, and we look at that ending skill and we don't realize that, I use a round off handspring tuck, they're landing short, they're putting their hands down, their legs are apart. Well, they kind of don't have a choice because their front foot turns and they're round off, and now they're going crooked, and now their back handsprings like this. And then, how are you going to do a good tuck out of that position? So fixing the first problem and being able to identify what the problem is and prioritize, the corrections, because there are times in the season where you just don't have time to go back and spend a lot of time on the round off. So you do have to kind of put a Band-Aid on it for a little while. And then when you can go back, you can actually do surgery on it. But sometimes you need a Band-Aid and sometimes you need a scalpel. So that and being able to prioritize those two. So I would say those are my two core philosophies when approaching tumbling and talking to my coaches in my program as well.
Yeah. So I love that, Shea. I love it. It's education, development, understanding things are super important. And we have today in our sport so many people that either were tumblers, right, themselves, but they don't have the education on how to teach tumbling. So I think you were lucky because you were a tumbler, but you were always in the presence of somebody that was teaching, right? That could break it down, looked at it, and was teaching. But today we have people that, that a lot of our coaches, they were athletes, right? So now they need to teach tumbling, but they need the instruction. They need to understand things kind of the way you are, not just I did it, so you should do it, right? And every athlete's different and learning and whatnot. So, and then are those people that may never have, they have no experience in tumbling, but they need to learn from the very basics because they're in a position where they need to be able to either instruct it or look at it and fix it, but they don't have any of that experience. And quite honestly, Shea, you and I know it as well. There's not a lot of places that you can get that education unless you seek it out, right? You either have to bring somebody into your gym to teach it, or you have to you attend the conferences and get that information.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. My dad was he was my coach. He's my mentor. He's still my mentor to this day. I lean on him a lot when it comes to, I'll send him a video. What do you think? And yeah, if I were to pull up a group chat with me, or a text string with me and my dad, the first thing is always, Shea, look at a round off. Doesn't matter how cool the skill is. I'm like, Dad, look at this person. They did an Arabian through the double. And he's like, yeah, but she's not her lunge, Shea. Her lunge just is not long enough. And it's the same when I reach out to Debbie Love or, any of my other friends. You get these things and you either want to show off the skill and, hey, check out this video, or you're looking for some help. And it's always look at this. But as I was learning, my dad had when he was working with he started working with high schools and middle schools. And so I would go with him. And I really, I wanted to spot, I wanted to help him. And he would make me, I had to shadow him a year for every skill. So for 1 year, I had to stand behind him and act like I was spotting, and he would spot with me. And, I know in this day and age, in this time, that doesn't happen anymore. But there are I'm fortunate in our program. We have a great training system that's been developed, over the years. Nikki Reichert is our class coordinator, and she does an exceptional job training those, our new staff. We have a coaching athletes program that, we have kids in our program that want to coach, or junior coaches and things like that. And she takes her time with it, and that's very fortunate. But yeah, like you said, just being able to get out there, I feel like every time, I've spoken at, I've lost count of the number of regional, national meetings, but I always feel like I learn as I go, as attendees learn from me. So just based on conversation or questions that people ask, like, hey, what happens if this happens? I'm like, man, that hadn't happened in a while, or man, I forgot about that drill that really helped that one kid that one time. And I think, to the point that you were talking about, athletes, a lot of times they know the way they were trained, so they think that's the only route, and then they're doing that route, and it works, and then they run into the kid that it doesn't work with. So what do you do? So it's a lot like going fishing. I love to fish with that red worm, and I cast it out, and I'm catching fish, and I'm catching fish, and then one day I go out there and I cast that red worm and nothing's biting. But if the red worm's all I have in my toolbox, I'm going to be out of luck. So I need to make sure that I got multiple options and multiple tools that allow me to approach these athletes in different ways and help identify those things.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that everybody that's tuning into my new podcast, right, is getting all these nuggets. And if not, we're gonna split some of this up, Shea, and put these as other pieces, because the two nuggets that people may have missed is, number one, right, you need more tools in your toolbox, which was your last one. But the biggest nugget in here is that Shea Crawford, right, with 44 years of practical experience, truly, right, from you doing it to teaching to shadowing, you still have people that you have to ask questions to, right? There are still people that you rely on, and you go other places to get the information, because sometimes you, right, who I see as, one of the foremost experts in our industry in tumbling, still says, hey, I might need help with this, right? Or give me your opinion, because you're like, I might be missing something, right? So you're not
Absolutely.
yeah, you're not in this position where you're like, I'm just going to flail and try, right? I've tried and tried and I can't do it, but there's this one little thing. So I think those are two nuggets that people, hopefully they take away from this, right? That
Yeah.
you don't have to be alone in this. Find a network of people that you can, send some information to. I don't know, I hope not everybody from the meeting starts sending you their videos, but, don't give out your cell phone number or you're going to get all of those. So what I want to do now is transition into a little bit of the conference. I know you and I laugh because there are several people I'm like, we're going to split, we'll split up your stuff. They'll have topics, but just bring your bag of tricks. And then Justin Miller, I haven't even mentioned him. So just so everybody knows, this was a last minute idea. Surprise, surprise from Amy Clark, right? That we're going to go ahead and start talking to people and asking them things a couple weeks before the meeting. So both Shea and Justin are super busy and their schedules didn't line up. So I'm going to talk to Justin, a little bit later, but Shea and Justin Miller are going to be co-teaching a lot of the classes, so that you get either different perspectives or aligning perspectives. And it's going to be really hard to stand and teach 12 hours of tumbling classes. Yes, everybody, I said 12 hours of tumbling at the national conference, which is well worth coming. So Thursday, we are doing a one-day kind of clinic, 3 hours of tumbling, 3 hours of building. And so Shea and Justin on Thursday are going to do 3 bonus hours of tumbling. It's included in the 12 hours, but 3 bonus hours of tumbling. So Shea, give me a little preview kind of maybe what you would talk, what your thought process or what you might go through in those 3 hours would be.
For me, it's about having the foundation of, I talked about fixing the first problem, being able to identify the first problem. And there's so many, as I talk and we work on, I can't tell you how many times I talk about, my main thing is hand placement, where are their eyes looking, what are their feet doing, in teaching those really strong fundamentals and how you see it in everything. Like you should see the same hand placement in a back walkover, a back handspring, use those same arms in a tuck, layout, full, double. Um, how being consistent at the beginning will lead to consistency at the end, regardless of where they want to go. Um, Giving these athletes and coaches the ability to see those things and to really try to identify visually the things that we repeat and we go over um, in preparing those things, and how one thing stacks on top of another. We don't just start here and then go over there and then come back over here. Like how do we go from one to another?
Mhm.
And I think one of the things that has allowed me to be successful in this industry for as long as I have been is not being afraid to take a step back to those fundamental building blocks. So to identify, okay, we've been going here. When do we take a step back? And how does that really, go slow to go fast? That kind of philosophy, that kind of thought process of, you know, sometimes you got to slow down to speed up. So really trying to have when you're talking about 3 hours, you got so much time that you can really start from day one to be able to show where you want to go to year 10 or year 15, 20, and how being consistent with those. And, I have one of my girls the other day just walking by, and I was working with a lesson, and I've worked with her for well over 10 years, and she's a senior now. And I was like, hey, what do you always think of when we do a round off? She's like, park the car in the garage. And I was like, all right, good. So she has that thing that I've beaten to her head so many hundreds of thousands of times. And now she's on a world's team throwing these crazy passes. But that little basic thing that I taught her when she was 5, she still remembers. And it's still something that I say even to this day. And when I talk about park the car in the garage, just so everybody knows, as you see, I'm in my son's race car room. First hand is the garage, second hand is the car. So we want to make sure that we're nice and safe with that hand placement. So it's a strong position as well as a safe position. So just things like that you can really, those nuggets that you never stop. Those are the things that I say on a daily basis. And that's what I really hope to do on Thursday is just, here's the things that I say and I do every day. And I do them every day, no matter if it's a kid in their first day or if I'm working with a world's kid. It doesn't matter. I'm still driving these points home because they're safe and they're crucial in the progression of the athlete.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So I'm going to go through here because so Shea and Justin, but you can throw anything at them. They bring their bag of tricks and they talk about it. So I'm going to go through a list kind of your classes so that everybody knows. We've got a tumbling, setting up kind of your tumbling class structure and a conditioning regimen, breaking down the basics, handsprings and tucks. We've got a front tumbling class, tips and tricks to achieve your score sheet drivers from in tumbling, building better layouts. And that's the one Justin's going to do by himself because you, at that exact same time, I believe, are going to be doing a class with our conduct and compliance team. And we're going to come back to that one. And then how tumbling relates to building and body shapes. I think that's going to be a great class. And you're the one that had actually brought up, let's add that class because it transfers across both.
Yeah, Dana and I talked about that years ago at a breakfast in Australia. And we were literally having breakfast in Australia. And it was when the non-tumbling divisions were just starting to become, I think it was the first year of them. And I was telling her, like, there were a lot of people that were really like, oh, non-tumbling's going to eliminate tumbling. And I was like, I don't think it ever can because there's so many things in tumbling that build stunning and vice versa. There's a lot of positives that stunning do that can help assist, and we can help each other, whether you're on a non-tumbling team or level 1 through 6, it doesn't matter. But those pieces and fundamentals are just they're undeniable. Like no matter what you want, it doesn't really you on if you don't know head placement, body alignment, things like that. A handstand's everywhere.
Right.
Nothing we do that is not in. So it helps. Whether you want to compete your back handspring or not. If you want to do a back handspring up, you better have those pieces. You better have something.
Right.
So
Right.
really excited.
Well, and I think that this kind of continues to talk about kind of the progression of the sport in the fact that things aren't done in isolation. All the innovation that's happened in the building skills, if you aren't a strong tumbler, it's okay, but you need the pieces of strong tumbling, right? So that handstand, as you said, is everywhere. It is everywhere now. And then that kind of, if you can't feel it, right, you can't fix it type of thing. There are sure, once an athlete feels what it is to be hollow, right? Like you can say you need to be hollow, but they can't feel it, right? And there's no body awareness. And so even the positions and feeling the positions helps with your body awareness when you're up in the air. And then at the bases, right? Bases know what a handstand is supposed to look like. I'm sure that if we've got a flyer in the air and their handstand is going awry, the bases who can predict what's going to happen right now to save something when things aren't going great is also a great tool to have.
When you're doing a handstand, you don't balance on a flat hand. You use your fingertips to balance and squeeze. And that right there is how you grip a foot and how you balance. And if you're doing hands and your thumb and the different, just something as simple as that, just the way you squeeze the floor in a handstand is the way you train those muscles in your hand up to your forearm and your wrist to protect and get those grips. So, that again, I'm excited about that one because there's a lot of different ways it can go. It's never been done.
Right.
So where it goes, I don't know. But it'll go where the class wants it to go.
Right.
There's definitely some core pieces I want to make sure that I address because, again, I don't think that tumbling's ever going to disappear. I don't think it's going to be overtaken by one or the other. But I think it's important to understand, where it goes for, like you said, the evolution of the industry.
As creativity still is super important, right? People are taking pieces they know and putting them in the air. So that's interesting. Another tumbling class is twisting techniques. Obviously, tumbling and twisting. But the class that I said we were going to come back to is a spotting tumbling technique class. And this is going to be great, right, Shea? Because it's got two pieces to it. So there's the spotting tumbling techniques, and then we are going to actually have our conduct and compliance. We've got two members of that team that are also going to kind of be in the room with Shea to address some of the concerns that exist in our industry when it comes to tumbling and spotting and things that may happen when you're spotting, right?
Spotting, priority number one is the safety of the athlete. You want to make sure you're always protecting the head. That's number one, first and foremost. And then number two, if something were to happen, the kid's falling a direction or there's a risk, and you have to protect them in something that may make them feel uncomfortable, just based on how you had to catch them. Addressing it and making sure you identify it and how you go about that process, and making sure you let the parents know what happened, why it happened, not trying to cover something up or trying to blow it off so that it wasn't addressed. I say all the time, if something happens, I want to make sure that I speak directly with the parents, because I want them to hear it from me that an uncomfortable situation may have happened, and with the athlete there and present. So if something were to come up, at least there's a clear line of communication and documenting it as well to make sure that the athlete knows first, the parent knows, as well as the program, that something happened. Again, if it comes down to an uncomfortable situation or protecting the athlete, we're going to have the uncomfortable conversation, because I want to make sure that I'm protecting their head and protecting their body so that they can't get injured. That's my number one job as a tumbling coach when I'm doing that, is to, always tell my athletes, I want you to walk out the same way you walked in. I want them to be safe. But with that, we do some things that could be potentially dangerous. Unintentionally, sometimes a kid slips, or, any number of 1,000 things can happen. So in spotting, making sure that you're prepared for that. But then, and as well as with the compliance, making sure that, that you're communicating anything that happened, and letting them know. And then also too, how to set yourself up, how you can set yourself up spotting to avoid those potential issues, as well as dog and language, and the way that I don't tell an athlete to squeeze their butt. I tell them to engage their glutes and push up through their hamstrings. So just some changes in verbiage can really help protect me as an instructor as well as the athlete, so that we know that there's a crystal clear line in dealing with them. So things like that. I'm excited to hear from the compliance, some situations that they've heard or that they've come across, and what I personally would do to try to, how could I put, how could that have potentially been spotted differently to completely avoid it to begin with, or in the case that it did happen, what the way that I would handle it.
Right. So again, it's the evolution, right? That's the evolution of youth sports at this point, right? Like where we've coaching philosophies, the ways, that we talk and we interact with athletes, the way we work with parents, the systems in place within an organization, right? To make sure that things are documented, that we have processes, that we anticipate, anything. And I'm not just talking in this conduct and compliance area, right? I'm talking about systems for anything and everything. I think you're blessed. You guys are in an organization that has a really strong leader, right? In making sure what's going on, and then all of the directors in your program contributing to that and whatnot. So, I think everybody's in for a treat. And even, Shea, I think back to, I did a search like Chicago and tumbling clinic and all of those things. And I don't know what the exact date was, but I do know that, in my current email, I can go back to 2012 and the word Chicago. And I know back then I was calling and begging and asking you to come. And just to think of even that evolution of you who continues to learn and to grow and to where you are, back then you were part of a team learning and growing. And now if there was a team, you would be the one in charge of it, So I hope you don't mind me gushing over you, but,
Been a full ride. It really has. I've been blessed. I've been very fortunate to have some incredible mentors, and I've had I've literally traveled the world doing what I love. So I couldn't ask for, I genuinely could not. I've spent many years with Debbie and Brett, and it kind of started. I was actually had left Brandon my first go round. I think it was 2000. Oh man, I don't even remember what year it was. And Andre, I got a call from Andre, and he had asked. He was like, "Hey man, we got this conference going on. We need a speaker. Are you down?" And I was like, "Well, I'm not doing anything else, so sure, let's go." And I don't even remember when or where it was, but I know that call changed my life, because based on that, I've traveled Italy, Australia, all over Canada, all over the US, and got to work with some incredible people. I'm really excited to work with Justin. He's somebody that I consider a good friend, and we share videos all the time. We go back and forth on stuff, but we've never we've always, just like today, trying to time up this call, we just always missed each other in some way, shape, form, or fashion. So I'm really excited to get the opportunity to work with him. And, you got two people up there that love it, and it just goes, it just goes. And we start sharing like, oh yeah, I did that. And hey, when you do that, I usually do this too. And, it just starts rolling. And then you get to the end of class, you're like, oh man, class ended 5 minutes ago. Sorry guys. That's what I enjoy, is really getting the opportunity to dive in. If I could tell people that are attending anything, like, ask questions in the class. Like, it never fails when the class is over and they're like, hey, what do you think about this? I'm like, man, that question would have been like, I know when you were thinking about that question, it would have been so good to answer this question so that other people could hear this response, so that we could, there so many more people deal with it than I think people realize. Everybody thinks like, oh man, I'm the only one. This only happens in my gym. Like, no, I got the same hiccups in my gym every day. It's just different, so that would be again, I some people are comfortable asking questions publicly. Some people are not. So if you want to ask when in the hallway, ask away. But, I'm happy to answer or have a discussion. I don't think my way is the only way. That's something that's evolved over the years. If you go back a couple USASFs, ago, it was like, do this or you're wrong. And, I've evolved as well. But the safety of the athletes hasn't changed. That has always been priority number one. And that is why I'm excited to get an opportunity to come back and chat with everybody that's attending, the other speakers. It's why we do what we do.
Yep. Well, Shea, super, super happy that you and I could get some time together today to do this so that I could get this information out. I'm going to thank you again for saying yes to come speaking at the conference. I know, we talked about it, and, it's hard for somebody, right, that teaches tumbling in the summer to get away, because this is when you're really building your foundations and doing everything with the teams. And so we're super excited to have you. I'm thanking you on behalf of the USASF and everybody else that's there. I'll be talking to Justin later in the week. So that might be episode 3 or episode 4 or episode 5 of the, mini podcast that I created for myself. There is no place to like, subscribe, or get your notifications, because this isn't a real podcast. It was we need to get this done and get it out so that we could share the information. So thank your wife and Carter for sharing you with us for that weekend. And I have duly noted that we have a birthday to celebrate on that Friday. So we, and hopefully more people who now have decided that they have to come to the meeting because of listening to you, will get in the car and drive and come see us. Or maybe they can get one of those last minute super saver flights that sometimes happen. But we're super excited, and we'll see you in New Orleans, and hopefully we'll see other people there as well. Thanks, Shea.
Look forward to it. Thank you.